I think there's more opportunity in the financial services space than ever before. I mean, I started in this industry in 1886, but as I look at where we're at today, we've had just major change, especially in the last, five to 10 years. We had very little change for the first 20 years of my career. Now I think we've seen tremendous change, but I also think that that's created amazing opportunity. I think the two factors there, we've got 50% less broker dealers than we had 15 years ago, and we've got about 10% less financial advisors. And we've done that in an environment where we have an increasing demand for financial advice. And then we put in what I think is the perfect storm, and that's that, a third of financial advisors are expected to retire in the next 10 years. So you put all of that together, and that creates amazing opportunity.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Do That podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Waltrich, and today I am here with David Wood. Hi, David.
Hello, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me.
Great to see you, as always.
I was doing my research looking at your LinkedIn profile, and it just always struck me that your title is what it is. Give us the background behind that.
Sure. So, I think when you look at an organization and leadership specifically, part of it is having a clear vision for the team to operate under. So we started using the Entrepreneurial Operating System last year, and I think that role of CVO, Chief Visionary Officer, it was even clearer after we started using EOS that's the right role for me, right? So when you look at an organization and leading it, one of the big things is making sure that the entire organization, your team is bought into really your core values, number one, but also where you're going, what's the vision for the future. And I think and we've always done goal planning and everything else, but EOS really wrapped around such a set of principles, and we're working with an outside facilitator on that. I think it's just been a complete game changer for our organization.
That's awesome. I'm hearing that more and more from firms using EOS lately. I feel like it's really catching on in our space.
I mean, it really, we've always started with kind of our mission, vision, and values, but what EOS does is it really has you step back and set a clear set of goals, but then also a very high level of transparency. So we have a series of about 6 different meetings throughout the week, which I'm only involved with 2 of them. We have a leadership meeting, a new business development meeting, but then our operations marketing team, compliance, HR and finance all get together for their own meetings within the organization. But the really cool part about it is we've got a really clearly defined set of goals and objectives that we're looking to do, scorecards every week of what we're keeping track of, a very detailed accountability chart of kind of the functions within the organization that people are accountable for. So we're taking the people out of it and we're making the role around, we're looking to achieve this. And then that role is filled by a person or multiple people, but we're looking at the roles, not necessarily the people. So one of the premises of EOS is you've got to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And just for the listeners, I also want to warn them, you're gonna find that some people probably don't get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. So as our EOS facilitator has always said, you're going to get what you want. And just be prepared for that. And it's really funny because you and I have a mutual friend who started using EOS last year, and kind of partially on my recommendation. And you can tell internally it definitely provides a lot of clarity, but also if people don't fit, then it's going to create some friction. And if people aren't accountable to the goals and what you're looking to achieve, then that's also going to be a problem. So there's some really awesome things that come out of it, but there can be that situation where you're going to expect what you get, because you're going to get that, and it may not be pretty, but that's you're going to get what you want. You may just not want it at the end of the day.
Exactly. So, you know what? And the sausage making doesn't always have to be pretty, right? Like you got to do what you got to do to figure it out. And it's funny because, so we did EOS at Orion. We were too big by the point that we implemented it. I think everybody on the leadership team would agree. We were far past
probably.
But we picked up some good stuff from it. So then when I tried to implement it here at Intentionally, the first step of it is, do you have the right people in the right seats? And that was let me hit the brakes here for a second and get my leadership team set up and aligned so that as we're going through this process, we're making the most of it. So as you've seen me make some hires and some changes over the last couple of years, that's very much why.
Some hires?
Yeah.
Is there
Some
anybody left? Is there anybody left to hire or?
Oh, hey, you know what? I feel like there's an appetite for the kind of marketing support that we're providing, so
Well,
I'm gonna keep it rolling.
you've done a phenomenal job, and I mean, in full disclosure, we're an intentionally client too. So, and it's been really cool to see the journey from starting it to where you built it today and where you're going. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, thank you. You know what? Okay, so my next question for you about Gateway is Tina came back from your office and she gushed. So Tina Powell, you guys all know she's my partner here at Intentionally. If you don't know Tina, you need to. And she gushed about your office, about your space, about your culture. And I feel like this industry is void of the focus on culture with all of the M&A, and I feel like you definitely are taking a different approach. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that because I think it's what sets you apart.
Yeah, I mean, so that when you look at the office, there's really two parts. There's the space part, right? But then there's also what that space creates from a working environment and the structure, and I think attention to detail behind it. So I think, one of the words, and you're going to love this, but one of the words from people that have visited the office, and we've had a ton of prospective advisors and firms come visit us. One of the words that they've come away with is, "This is the most intentional office that I've ever seen," because there's a lot of intentionality behind it. When you walk into our main lobby, we've got our mission, vision, and values up on the wall. Throughout the office, our core values are prominently displayed. So we've got, pillars in the office with our core values on them. So I think we've really built that. There's a high level of transparency. We put our net promoter score up. We're very proud. Our net promoter score last year was an 83, which was up from a 66 2 years ago. So I mean, we're incredibly proud of kind of what we've built, but the office just kind of solidifies that. So I think it's you've got the right people in the right seats, and then also the right environment behind it. And I think we made an acquisition about 3 years ago, and I think when I looked at that, the part that we didn't get as right as we could have was bringing the two teams together culturally. I think we knew it was important, but we probably didn't take all of the steps that we needed to. I think today, we're actually talking with another firm now to potentially partner with, and they run on EOS. So when I look at that culturally, there's two organizations that are massively aligned already in the way that they operate.
Oh
So
my
when you
gosh.
bring two organizations like that are really in sync, I think something like that would be way easier, right?
Yeah.
I think many of these M&A aggregators, right? There's so many things they get right, but I think if you can't get that culture right at the end of the day, it's definitely wrought with conflict. And I've been through some advisors. I've got some good friends who've sold to firms, and you can tell there's a big shift in culture from them, right? Running your own operation to being put into a culture, and if that
Right.
culture doesn't fit and align with you, you're kind of not as happy as maybe you were before, and that's some of the feedback I've gotten from some of the folks that I've had. So I think that culture is really important. I think we've created a great environment to support that. Plus, we have the space to grow, which is also cool. We were in our last location for about 25 years, and we made the
Wow.
big move across the street. So we leased the entire first floor of a commercial building literally across the street. So we got to wheel the chairs and computers across the street.
Nice.
And our prior office was only about a half a mile from here. So as I always joke, we really haven't made it that far. So
I love that. I listen, having been through many acquisitions myself and seeing the good, bad, and the ugly, I am a wild advocate of paying attention to the cultural coming together and doing an amazing job on communicating, over communicating to everyone involved, and doing so authentically and no lies. Like you just can't tell lies. You can't tell everybody. My biggest pet peeve in integration is telling everyone that nothing's going to change.
right.
And that's just never the case. And normally it's for the better, but you have to be real about those things. I think when you go through a coming together, it's what matters to people. Are you being transparent?
Yeah, and for us, I think there were two things that happened. One, there was the people, the team, right, the employee part of the team that came together, and I
Yeah.
think we probably should have gotten the team all together more quickly and done some more team building exercises together more quickly. And then there was the advisor part. And what's really interesting is the first year after that acquisition, we've got about 2/3 of our financial advisors operate under our brand and an entire ecosystem that we've created, right? So it's an
Right.
ecosystem of support that goes way beyond the brand. And the highest net promoter score that we had that year was from the new advisors that joined us from that acquisition over to our ecosystem. Those advisors had the highest net promoter score of any of the advisors that we've had. And largely those advisors that have done that have grown tremendously. So it was really interesting to see, right? It's for the better, but also it's how do you explain that to advisors who've maybe done something, a different way for so many years? How do you help educate them that there's other ways to operate? We find that a lot in the industry just in general.
Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that I noticed, well, I can't say that I just noticed it, is that you are an amazing social media follow. For those of you who are not following David, he is a road warrior, and that's an understatement.
Well,
I
well,
get
somebody I
tired
was
watching you.
I was on a podcast. I was on a podcast yesterday, and over my shoulder there, somebody thought that pile was business cards, and I told them no, it's actually hotel room keys, and that's not all of them. So, my
Oh
goal in
my
life is
god.
to die with the most hotel room keys. I think there's a Guinness Book World Record for those, and I'm trying to work on it actually. So,
Oh my gosh.
I
Okay.
do, I do, I do travel a lot. I mean, I think that part of this, you go back to culture. There's nothing like personal interaction, and I traveled a lot during COVID, and I think it was one of the best things we did for business. And it was awkward because you didn't know do you shake hands or not shake hands. So there were a lot of awkward moments, but I think that face to face contact was very important. So I mean, I do travel a lot to see our advisors, and obviously, speaking at conferences and attending conferences, but there's some great experiences. I was in Brandon, Mississippi last week with a new advisor who's affiliating with us, and I got to see Willie Nelson, right, who's 91, and take the advisor to that. The advisor is a music buff, so to be able to take him to the event was really really cool. To see Willie
Awesome.
Nelson, who's 91, was really cool. And
Yes.
something I learned, which was awesome, he's played the same guitar for 55 years.
Oh my
Trigger is the
gosh.
name of his guitar. So some of the travel can become a lot of fun, but I think sharing the story in social is important. It's a great way to connect with people, and it's a lot of fun to follow people. You can learn a lot from that, and also share a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So you're on the road as much as you are. What are you in search of? Who are you in search of? Tell us what you're looking for.
Well, I think there's more opportunity in the financial services space than ever before. I mean, I started in this industry in 1886, but as I look at where we're at today, we've had just major change, especially in the last, 5 to 10 years. We had very little change for the first 20 years of my career. Now I think we've seen tremendous change, but I also think that that's created amazing opportunity. I think the two factors there, or maybe two of the factors. One of the factors, we've got 50% less broker dealers than we had 15 years ago, and we've got about 10% less financial advisors. And we've done that in an environment where we have an increasing demand for financial advice. And
Yep.
then we put in what I think is the perfect storm, and that's that, a third of financial advisors are expected to retire in the next 10 years. So you put all of that together, and that creates amazing opportunity. And when I say a third of financial advisors, it's not like saying, well, a third of fax machine repairmen are going to retire, right? Nobody uses a fax machine anymore. We're in an environment where we've got an increasing demand for the need for financial advice and clients that are willing to pay for it.
Yep.
So you put all of that together, and I think that there's just so much opportunity ahead of us, right? So we're really out looking, to partner with financial advisors to provide them with a scaled ecosystem to help them grow. And I think that's, that the advisors that are well positioned are really in a position to grow in this environment. We've got a advisor in Chicago who last year we helped make 3 acquisitions in 12 months. So he, 6x his revenues in 12 months because he now has an ecosystem to fall back on with a lot more scaled support than he had when he was completely alone trying to do all this on their own. And it's just made a tremendous, just tremendous amount of growth. We've helped about nearly 30 acquisitions in the last 3 years we've helped advisors with. So,
Wow.
this is only going to accelerate as we see a third of the industry retire. So I think there's just tremendous opportunity out there.
All right, David, let's have a little bit of fun. There's tremendous opportunity out there, but all advisors are not created equal, right? Okay. So, what are some things that you hear from an advisor say where you think to yourself, they are not for my firm?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and I'll share something that Matt Oxley said. Matt's a coach for high performing financial advisors, and he was in my office maybe 15 years ago. He's got relatives who live in our town actually,
Nice.
and one of the things that Matt said really stood out to me. He said, if I give $1 million producer an idea, they come back in a week and tell me how it worked out. If I give $100,000 producer an idea, they come back in a week and tell me 5 ways they can do it better. Right. So part of this, I think the coachability is really, really important. I spend a tremendous amount of money between EOS for our entire organization. I have a personal coach who I absolutely love. I'm part of multiple industry mastermind groups, one that our coach runs, you know, uh, Carolyn's RIA Circles group, I'm a member of, Advisor Growth Community, I'm a member of. So I think part of this is I'm really striving to learn and get better. And I think that the advisors that are willing to say, "Hey, I don't know everything. I want help," and there's so much help out there. So I think the advisors that are willing to accept that help are advisors that excel. I mean, we've got a big marketing team internally, right? So I mean, we've
Yeah.
got 7 or 8 people on our marketing team, but we're working with intentionally because we don't know it all, and we probably don't have having another set of eyes and really skilled people who are really smart and quite honestly, probably better in a lot of areas than we are. I can see the results that are coming out of this. So I think part of it is just to be open. So the advisors that I think, and I think not just for our firm, but in general in the industry, the advisors that say, "Hey, I don't know it all." I come in every day saying, "Well, I don't know it all. I want to go out to find other really smart people who can
Right.
help." And there's a lot of people out there willing to help. That's the cool part about it. And it's a lot of fun to see how I think supportive our community is, right? So I made a post a year ago that we're not in the financial services industry, we're in the financial services community. And I really believe that. I mean, there are so many great people that if I picked up the phone today and said, "Hey, I need help on something," they drop everything and help. And I'm
Yep.
one of those people. Somebody called me and said, "Boy, I need help." I drop everything and help them. So I think that there's a lot of support within the community. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I think that too. I think if I've learned a lot of things starting this business, but that certainly is one of them that everybody for the most part really wants to see you succeed and wants
Even
to
even the
yeah.
competitor even the competitors, I mean, it's like, I think you talk to people that you see as a competitor, and they're as willing to help you as everybody else is. It's the really cool part about the industry.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, David. So, the premise of this podcast is don't do that because I believe that we learn better from our mistakes than our wins, which follows along nicely to what we were just talking about. So, David Wood, what are we not doing today?
What are we not doing today? We're not going it alone. So I know you had Joel Bruckenstein on a couple weeks ago, and Joel basically said, don't go it alone." And I think that I would echo those sentiments. Don't go it alone. When we look at the scale of the industry, we joined a broker dealer through an acquisition of a $1 billion revenue broker dealer that said we can't go it alone. So we saw that with the Commonwealth announcement recently. Commonwealth says we can't go it alone. So I think what we're seeing in the industry is we're seeing this scale of the advisors and the firms that are recognizing that they can't do everything. Again, why are we using intentionally? It's because we can't do everything alone. And the cool part about it is the bigger you scale, the more you have the ability to invest in resources like intentionally. I couldn't have done that 10 years ago. Today, I can. So this scale is leading to, I think, a bigger differentiator between the folks that are really successful in the industry and the folks that are struggling and are going to continue to struggle more because of all this change. So I think the scale is really important. I think what's really interesting in the financial advisor space today, I see a lot of similarities to doctors. So if you go back to 2002, in 2002, 75% of physicians own their own practice and 25% work for a hospital or aggregator. In just 9 years, 2011, those numbers flip-flopped. And today you can't find a doctor that has that owns their own practice, right? They're all part of a scaled-in organization. And I see a lot of similarities to where financial services is going today, right? And there's a lot of similarities between doctors and financial advisors, highly regulated industry. We need support from technology providers, from clearing firms and custodians, from broker dealers. We need that support, right? But in many cases, smaller firms are being priced out of having the ability to use some of those technologies and clearing firms, et cetera. So I think it's all about that rush for scale, and that goes back to what I said about, don't go it alone.
Okay, so what a wild turn of events where, you said we're at 50% less broker dealers. Um, and the wave has been telling everybody, go out on your own, go out on your own. You need independence. You can do all these things better and more autonomously. And so we have that major shift. And then you're seeing firms like Commonwealth get rolled up. So it's kind of mind-boggling to think
So
about.
So it's about what does independence mean? I think that that's one of the
Right.
challenges. So part of this, and let's just kind of go through an example, right? If I'm at Edward Jones or Merrill Lynch, I'm an employee there. In many cases, I don't own my book of business if I'm in a employee channel. So I don't control really two things. I'm not independent of the ownership of my business, and I'm not independent of my economics.
Right.
So I say I want to become independent. So I go independent and I fix the ownership and I fix the economics, but then I break absolutely everything else.
Everything
So
else.
where I used to show up, I was independent of my time at a more captured environment. I was independent of my time because I had a partner who took care of all that infrastructure at a very high cost, but it
Right.
was taken care of. I go independent in what people think about of independence, which is, again, the control of the ownership and the economics, but I break everything else. So when I look at it, I think we're trying to turn the table and provide a higher level of support and independence where people can get control of the ownership and the economics. That's very important for us. We've got advisors that have partnered. We've got nearly 30 advisors that have an interest in our firm, right? So we've turned this independence to where the advisors have a stake in us, and we're really a partner providing a wide range of resources to them. So I think this is one of the challenges of independence. I think that the word independent, it's independent of what?
Right.
Because I think you're independent of your economics and ownership, or you're independent of your time. But this goes back to the scale. I think partnering with there's a lot of really good organizations out there that can be partners to give advisors back more time. And that advisor I mentioned in Chicago, who made 3 acquisitions, there's no way he could have done that without our support. One of the acquisitions he was trying to work on for 4 or 5 years, and we came in, and within 6 or 7 months the deal was closed. So part of this is, again, that support is leading to growth because it's the scale and experience and team and everything else that we have. It's like plugging into intentionally as a way for me to get scale of really, really smart people, a giant team, without having to hire
Right.
you and your entire team. I could never afford to do that. And I think it's the same thing with an advisor, right?
Right.
If you're hiring those right people, which is in essence when they look at a partnership with us, they're getting all of the marketing, operations, technology, all of this other stuff with scale that is very, very difficult to build on their own.
Right. Yeah, it does. I mean, that model makes a lot of sense to me. That's why I build intentionally. Okay, so what do you envision? So supported independence is more of this theme, right? So it was go independent, do your own thing. Now it's definitely shifting to, okay, you're probably not going to be able to do it yourself. So the supported independence model, where's this going to net out? Like, what do you see the next 5 years? What is the landscape going to look like?
Well, I think you're going to see continued consolidation in the broker-dealer space. You're going to continue to see trends away from the wirehouses and employee models because people do want the ownership and control of their destiny, right?
Yeah.
They do want that. So and there's nothing wrong with that. I think you're going to see more firms like us that the advisors have a stake in the firm, and I think that creates really a couple things: a better sense of community, number one, which
Yeah.
I find is very important with independent advisors. I think that culture and community is missing in so many of these organizations. And I think when advisors can find a firm that offers that community, I think that's very, very important to a lot of folks, that community and culture. We saw it was all about the money, and I'm not saying it's not about the money, but I think more and more advisors are looking at, hey, I really need more help to grow. And as the big firms have gotten big, I think they're further away from the end advisor. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So I think we're going to see continued consolidation in the broker dealer space. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of these RIAs, whether they're private equity backed aggregators or other firms that are scaling up with new and more innovative models, I think they're going to attract a lot of advisors. And I think the advisors that they're going to attract, there's a whole wave of younger advisors. There's I think a much a bigger barrier to entry to get into our industry today than ever before, right? So it's harder to get into the industry. And I think the industry needs to recognize that and
Yeah.
find ways that we can get younger advisors into the industry. And I think that's something that these larger firms have the capability to do, right? These firms that have scale like we do have the ability to bring in a set of advisors to service client bases. These smaller firms just don't. So I think this is going to be part of the advent of what this industry looks like. Plus, I think the next gen advisors, they want something different. I mean, we worked 90, 100 hours a week, and, quality of life is really hard. I travel a lot, obviously. And I think the next gen quality of life is more important to them. I think they want more work-life balance. And I think
Hmm.
that that's going to be, one of the big trends that we see also. I think what the younger gen wants and what the older gen wanted, I think that that's changing, but also the technology has had a big impact on that. I think AI is gonna have a profound impact on our industry. I don't think it's going to replace the advisor, but I think the advisors that can use AI effectively will have the ability to service more clients, and I think service them at more scale if you're using the technology right. And I think that's gonna, we still have a shortage of financial advisors. I don't think AI is going to replace that, but I
Right.
think advisors have the ability to grow. A lot of times advisors don't realize that. So, that advisor in Chicago, we helped him make two acquisitions within about a month. And then I think that was I think September or October, and around January or February says, "Boy, this is going really well. I think I'll be ready for like another one by the end of the year." And he acquired 1,299 accounts in under a year from another advisor. So I
Wow.
think that this advisor had to change his mindset, and I hear that a lot. I can never picture growing that much. Well, you can't, because that's a mindset thing, and it's a
Right.
lot easier. There's great book out there, 10x is easier than 1x. And I firmly believe that when you can hockey stick the growth of a practice revenue wise, you can fix a lot of problems. I mean, he went from one part-time assistant to four full-time people, right? So he didn't picture that where he was, but once he got there, it's easy to picture. Right.
Right.
And I think when you've done something like that, I often use the analogy, the first job we ever had, we got the $26 from working for the week or 2 weeks. We got $26.43. So we went down to the bank and we got a $20 bill, and we got a five and a one and some change. And we thought we were rich, right? And you look today, it doesn't buy a cup of coffee, right? So this is how things have changed. And when your perspective changes, I can remember the first month we did $1 million of revenue. And I can remember all those years that we didn't do a million in the year. And then I remember the month that we did it. Right. So when you recognize, I think a lot of advisors hold themselves back by not understanding the capacity that they really have. And the ones that do and can use technology and partner and outsource more of their non-revenue producing activities, there's a tremendous amount of growth.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Joel Bruckenstein, and he very sassily on my podcast said, don't think you're the smartest person in the room, right? We all need that reminder every now and then, I guess. So when you're talking to advisors, what are the things that you're saying? Don't do this alone. You need somebody outside of your office to help you with what? What are the things?
Well, we break it down really into four areas. It's marketing, operations, technology, and leadership, right? So I think when I look at what advisors needs, those cover the four areas, right? So that
Yep.
leadership might be M&A support as an example, right? I think 90+% of acquisitions are made by repeat buyers. So a first time buyer just doesn't know how to do it. I've helped a lot with it. Um, so I'm pretty good at it, right? So I think it's again about looking at how can I not go alone? How can I not know everything? I think leadership is definitely part of it. Technology, something that we've scaled up a lot of technology. We support advisors, all over the country with a standardized approach to technology. We can do it at a lower cost than what an advisor can do on their own, because we're
Right.
doing it at bulk, and it's cookie cutter, and we provide the hardware, software support, and it's very very scalable the way that we do it. operational support, I've always thought marketing was a big area that we helped advisors. More and more what I'm hearing is operations. It's not marketing anymore. I really thought marketing was the growth engine. More and more I'm hearing operations is the growth engine, because this is another challenge that your solo and small ensemble practices are having. They
Yep.
can't keep people anymore. They can't keep people, because if I'm 25 or 30 years old and I come to an organization of 2 advisors and I work there, where am I going from there? Where's my career path and future? What's that look like? I really don't have one. And this is the challenge. I think when we look at our parents went to work for a company and they stayed there for 30 years.
Whole life.
I,
Yep.
I don't I don't see the next generation doing that. So I think that this is another challenge that your smaller firms. We recently picked up, 2 employees from a smaller firm where I don't think the culture was amazing. And I think culture has driven some of those people out. It's not necessarily the money part, it's the culture part, being part of a community. So I think operations is another big area that we're really helping people, and then obviously on the marketing side. I mean, and we look at marketing different. I think when we look at marketing, we look at marketing as providing a client experience with scale. It's not about doing dinner seminars, right? I think advisors in a lot of cases have the misperception of what marketing is, and
Yep.
they say, "Well, I don't need marketing." Well, you need it a lot just to keep your existing clients, to grow the existing clients that you have, but more importantly, to get the next gen assets. I think that's the advisors that are growing today have a plan to get those next gen assets. And when you think about a third of our industry that's going to retire, a lot of those 70 and 80-year-old advisors, they don't have the next gen assets.
Right.
Right. So what's going to happen to their book of business when they have accelerated RMDs and clients are passing away and the assets go to the next gen that they're not that they don't have as clients? I think that's a business that they've built that's very valuable. That's probably worth more than it's ever going to be worth today, because they're in a if they're not getting those next gen assets and keeping the existing assets that they have on the books, that's a real challenge for them.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the operational front wholeheartedly. So we brought Randy Lambert to intentionally from over 30 years at Orion on the operations front for that reason. What we saw is you can do all the marketing you want, but if you're not set up for success on the operations side, then it's money wasted. So we saw a lot of dependencies there, and so we started helping firms do a little bit of that too. And I know my husband has been in financial operations for his whole career, so our dinner table conversations are wildly
A little, a
enthralling.
little, a little bit about the business.
A little bit about the business. Yeah, I bet you my 2-year-old and 5-year-old could talk financial services M&A with you one day based on
Perfect. Let's get him
listening to our
I do
calls.
a podcast. I'd be happy to get him on. It'd be great. Be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, everybody that's listening, David Wood is here to tell us that we are not going at it alone. Like, we need to make smart decisions about the things that we're getting help with, especially financial advisors just are looking for a partner, because we predict, right, David, that the next couple of years is going to be more consolidation and more need for scale within your advisory firm than ever before.
Yeah, but also more opportunity too. That's the exciting part,
Yes,
right? Like it's
yes.
just I started in '86 and I am more excited about the space today than ever before. I think there's just so much opportunity ahead of us.
I
That's really
love that.
exciting.
I love that.
It's not gonna be easy, right? I think that this is the other thing. Change, no matter how you look at change, is hard. So I'm not saying it's gonna be easy. I think there's tremendous opportunities for the folks that are open to change, willing to change, can accept the change, willing to get help. Those are the people that are gonna thrive here. And I don't care whether you're a solo advisor or a more scaled firm. I think you're gonna see, we already saw the first $1 trillion RIA only with Cap Trust, and I don't think we're done there. I think you'll see many, many more of these scaled $1 trillion RIAs, over the next several years, and it might be through an acquisition or merger between a couple of the big players that are out there today to get even
Yeah.
more scale. But there's definitely a rush for scale, no question about that.
Awesome. All right, guys, you heard it. David Wood says more opportunity than ever before, and he is off and running after it, so try to catch him. Thanks for listening. David, thanks for joining me.
Kelly
It's been really
Bridges,
fun.
bye
All
bye.
right, bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to be notified when new episodes become available. And please consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. This podcast is sponsored by Intentionally, a financial services growth engine design consultancy and agency. If you want to learn more, please email me at kelly@growintentionally.com. Thank you again for listening, and check back to hear what we're not doing next.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Kelly Waltrich. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.